Hey guys, what's going on? Luis here again, and this video is going to be about an interesting topic that I think a lot of people maybe struggle with or have experienced different, you know, things with it. So, relationships and entrepreneurship, should you be in a relationship, in an intimate relationship? How does it work? What should you look out for? What are some of the things that maybe are red flags and that sort of thing? So I've always been the type of guy who likes to be in a relationship, and this has been the case since I was young, right? Since I was in high school. For some reason, I'm not entirely sure why yet. I just always hated the thought of being alone. Um, and I think it's something that many people struggle with, not just myself, but just people in general. But I think it's important to take a look at it from a different perspective, as high performers or entrepreneurs, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes we get caught up in this cycle of, wanting to be with someone, not wanting to be alone. And there's people that are completely different that, you know, they don't really seek that. And coming from someone that's always seeked a relationship, that's always wanted to have that special someone in their life, I feel like I've been in very different stages, and it does affect you. It's going to affect you a lot, but I think there's also a lot of benefits that come with it. And of course, it all comes down to finding the right individual, right? So throughout my entire, time since I started, you know, kind of diving into entrepreneurship and wanting to build things and stuff like that, I feel like I've had a relationship for most of the time, and they were different relationships and very different types of relationships, right? So there's, again, like I said, there's things that you need to look out for. And I think the most important thing is that they should be supportive of what you're doing. They should try to help you, you know, evolve and just grow overall. And that's essentially what a relationship is, right? It's two people coming together in unison to essentially build up each other. And there shouldn't be any, bringing people down, anything negative like that. In reality, the first time you see anything like that, that should be your first red flag, because that's the last thing you need, especially if you're trying to expend a lot of energy into building something else. You're going to need a lot of support. You're going to need somebody there that you can talk to about the things that are happening, somebody that can sit there and listen and not necessarily give you their opinion, because they might be very different individuals, right? They might not be entrepreneurs themselves. They might be, you know, just not in this cohort of individuals that are trying to build something up, because it's very difficult, and there's a lot of stress involved, and there's a lot of time involved, and I think that's one of the biggest parts about it, is really finding the right balance between having a set time that you're going to be spending on working on your business, on building your business, and having a time to essentially spend with that specific someone, right? So one of those things that you'll start to realize, like, there's people that are very clingy, that has an emotional need. So there's a lot of different types of individuals. There's people that are always want to be texting you, that always want to be there with you, that you can't seem to get out of your space. There's people that you need to reach out to them in order for them to, initiate conversation. Ideally, you're going to have something of a mix in between, right? You don't want somebody that's always going to be there, um, you know, wanting to spend time with you, because that's going to deviate where your attention goes. And that's the most important thing, right? Is being able to figure out how much attention is going to be going to that specific person, and how much attention you're going to be putting into your business and the things that you want to do. And obviously, everybody needs space. So I feel like I learned some of these things the hard way, where I dated, you know, women of just different personalities, right? So some people that always wanted to spend time with you, always wanted to be texting you 24/7. You didn't really have any room to breathe. And to be honest, I'm the type of person that will talk to you all day. And that's something that I've worked on throughout the years and learning, what is the happy medium between, talking to somebody just for the sake of it, or talking to somebody because you want to talk to them, and talking to somebody because you want to talk to them. So I think there's a lot of different things involved and different, factors that come into play. But I think ideally, a relationship, when you're trying to build a company, when you're trying to build a business, should be supportive. They should be there, and you should be for them as well, right? This isn't a one-way street. This is a mutual, um, you know, partnership essentially. And sometimes you can treat it as a business, right? And you have to learn boundaries, and you have to respect each other and the wants and needs of one another. But you have to let the other person breathe, right? And I think that's the most important thing, is putting boundaries in place where, okay, this is going to be work time from, you know, this day to this day, from this hour to this hour. And then maybe you need also time to spend by yourself, which is incredibly important. And then you need time to be spending with that individual, right? So you don't want to just dedicate all your time into one person. You don't want to dedicate your entire time into building a business, because it's just not sustainable, right? Every human being needs different things. You need to be spending time with people that you love. You need to be spending time on the things that you enjoy doing. You need to spend time with yourself to be at peace. And that's one of the things that I really lacked, years ago, was just having the ability to be with myself, to be with my thoughts, and not having to constantly talk to somebody or something of that sort. So I think it's important to almost time block, right? Like I said, so you want to set those boundaries. You want to set a time where you talk to that person. Obviously, like, you can, if you need something or if you need to tell them something, you talk to them when essentially you need it, because you don't want to forget whatever that specific thing is. Or you could also write it down and then bring it up whenever they come home. Or if you guys live separately, bring it up whenever you guys talk during the day or whatever the case may be. But you need to let one another breathe. And I think that's one of the most important things that I've learned, is being able to give yourself the space, and also that individual the space that they need. I think it's important to realize that, not everybody is on the same wavelength as you, as far as, where you guys are at. So communication is incredibly important, right? And I know I'm not the first individual to say that. This is just a fact. You're not going to have any sort of good relationship without communication, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're just an employee, or whatever the case may be. Um, you need to have good communication. So you need, if something bothers you, right? If you are currently dating somebody that, is kind of wanting to spend too much time with you, and you just don't have that time, you don't have, you know, the energy to be putting into all that, then you need to bring that up. Because if you don't, it's gonna be burning inside you. It's like every time they reach out to you, every time they want to talk, you're gonna feel stress, you're gonna feel pressure, and it's not good to build those things up. Obviously, you need to communicate how you're feeling. One of the things that I actually do with my fiance is we do a weekly check-in, where I actually created an Excel sheet for this, and we do it every week. And we talk about how we're feeling, right? So, how do you feel like we gave each other attention? How do you feel like communication was this week? How do you feel like, love, like, how love do you feel, right? Not like sexual or anything like that. That's also in there, but you need to be constantly, going back, reflecting on how that week went. And that's what we do. We use it as a reflection tool to check how we're doing, check in with each other, make sure that we're not missing anything important, make sure that we're giving each other the attention that we need. And when you're with that individual, right, attention is imperative. You don't want to, you know, now you're blocking all this time to build and grow your business. And then when you're with that specific somebody, you're here and you don't want to be doing that. So make sure that boundaries are set. Make sure that, and doing this checking, it's something that not a lot of people do, but I think it's important. And I'm not telling you to do that. I'm saying this is what I do. This is my experience. So we'll create a check-in, and we go every Monday. We sit down and talk about how the previous week went, how we're feeling. If there's something that's bothering us, we bring it up, and it just creates an open line for communication that not a lot of people have because they don't have the space to do that. So you need to make sure that you're doing that sort of thing. Maybe not weekly, maybe monthly. Although monthly, you like tend to forget things. We even sometimes forget things when we do it on a weekly basis, but we do the best that we can, and that's all you can do, right? So communication is going to be the number one thing. Obviously, you want to be honest and respectful and loving and all those different things, but you need to make sure that you're giving each other the space that they need to do the things that they want to do. If, for example, I go to sleep early because I wake up early to go to the gym, right? Sometimes she wants to watch TV a little bit later. So she understands that. And in order for me to do that, I end up going to bed earlier and she stays in the living room watching whatever show she wants to watch. So that's one example of just giving each other the space, right? If we're working, she's in her office, I'm in my office. Right now, obviously, we're both working from home because of the virus, and we're giving each other the essentially the space and the working environment that we both want, right? So she's taking calls, I'm taking calls, I'm working. Um, I always work from home. So one of the things that I used to do before we moved in together was play loud music all the time, right? I can't do that anymore. So you have to make sure that you are um, compromising. So that's another really big important thing, right? And a lot of the things that you're going to be doing in a relationship is compromising, and it's a lot of hard work and there's going to be problems, but again, communication, right? If you speak, if you talk, if you project how you're feeling, that other individual is able to know where you're coming from, how you're feeling, and that it creates an open line of communication where you can work towards improving whatever is that's not going so well. And you also want to be going through the things that are going well. Why? Because you want to repeat those successful actions, right? If communication has been going really well, reflect on it, look at why that change happened, and try to maintain it. Be consistent with whatever you're doing because it's working. And you want to acknowledge that too. Remember, small wins add up, and small losses add up as well. So those I think are important things. Obviously, intimate stuff. Everybody has different taste, so do what you need to do there. I don't think it's necessarily important for entrepreneurship, uh, but I think the most important thing, is really having that support system and creating boundaries, right? Entrepreneurs are always working. So you want to make sure that you create those boundaries for that. If you're just starting a business and you have to make sales or sales calls and that sort of thing, you need to tell that individual, hey, I cannot be interrupted during this time because this is what I'm doing. And if they just don't understand that, then there has to be something that gives, right? So either that relationship just isn't going to work. And you also have to understand you have to set standards, right? If you're not in a relationship already, think of the relationship that you want and don't settle until you essentially find that, right? Don't set some crazy expectations on what a relationship should be, how things are, because it's never going to be exactly like that. You still have to go through everything with an open mind, right? So I think, in previous relationships, I had um, a partner where she had this ideal of what the relationship should be like. And she was thinking fantasy stuff, right? Like Prince Charming type of thing where everything had to be perfect, and that's just not realistic. A relationship is never going to be perfect. It's never going to be everything you want it to be, whether, you're seeing things, people getting married, everything is different. And you can't be basing your relationship on the relationships of others, right? Especially nowadays, because everything you're looking at on social media is probably sugar coated to some extent. And there are absolutely, people that are very vulnerable. They put themselves out there. They talk about everything that's happening, everything that's going on with them, and their specific somebody. Um, but a majority of the things that you see on social media are curated, right? They're highlight reels, and I think that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make is think of your relationship, or for a matter of fact, just everything that you see on social media is most likely some sort of highlight reel that's been curated, that's been edited, and it creates a false, perception. It creates false beliefs in people, and it's really hard to get out of that once you kind of start going down that rabbit hole. So you need to be able to filter everything that you're seeing and understand that most of it is curated in some form or way, and you need to be taking everything that you see with a grain of salt, and you have to set your own standards, and you have to be, the one placing boundaries and making decisions for yourself. So a lot of the things that you see are not going to be the way they really are, and that's just a fact. So I think when it comes down to, being in a relationship, being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of different things that come into play, but I think the most important ones are going to be boundaries, obviously, having high standards, and communication. I think with those three, everything else kind of falls into play, and you are the one essentially making a decision on whether or not this is going to be good for you long term. Take a look at all those different things. Now, what about not being in a relationship while you're an entrepreneur, right? I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the early stages, tend to get lonely, right? Because now the only thing that you're doing, is, especially if you live alone, is you're waking up. Um, Perhaps you're going to the gym, you come back, you have breakfast, or you have your coffee, or whatever the case may be, and then you work all day, and then rinse, repeat, right? You still need relationships. You need friends. You need to talk to people that are like minded. You need to talk to people that have similar goals as you. You can't live in a silo, right? So you still need to be out there and interact with people and socialize, because we are humans, and by nature we seek those things. Um, so definitely, I think, you know, at the same time, when you're not in a relationship, don't rush anything, right? You don't want to have that somebody to talk to just because you feel like you need it. And in reality, you don't. We came into the world alone. We're going to leave alone. We're perfectly fine if we don't have that special someone. And some of you may be saying, right, well, it's easy for you to say you found your fiance and stuff like that, but it's the truth. And it took me a long time to kind of learn these things, where you have to be comfortable being on your own. You have to be comfortable being with your own thoughts. And one of the things that has helped me with that a lot has been meditating. And like I said, in a previous video, right, going to places of low sensory input where you can spend time by yourself, be essentially the one making all the calls for what's going to happen on any given basis. And I think it's important to be comfortable, just being on your own as well. So it's healthy. Um, but so that's kind of what I think about relationship and entrepreneurship. Obviously, a support system is awesome, and being able to talk about the things that are happening on your day to day is incredibly valuable. And if you're in a relationship and you don't know essentially, how to juggle two together, I think you may be missing some of those boundaries and expectations that need to be set, right? The standards. because without that, it's really hard to just, be in a peaceful state with everything that's going on, because building your business is a full-time job, probably overtime, right? And having a relationship is also a full-time job, and you have to nurture it, you have to build it, you have to work on it as well, and it just takes the right amount of balance. So don't rush into anything. Everything really do comes, in due time, and there's no reason to rush into anything, or go on Tinder and look for things that you're just not necessarily ready for. And I think the moment where you stop looking for something is when it almost shows up. Obviously not with everything, right? There's things that you need to work on and stuff like that, but for me specifically, I think with relationships, that is exactly how it worked out. um and you have to be in the right place mentally to be with someone, and you know build that up while you're building a business as well. So if you guys like this video, if there's any follow-up that maybe you would want me to make, or any comments, any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, turn on notifications if you want to see more of these videos. If you have any ideas for future videos, feel free to drop them down below as well. And thank you for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. Take care.